What's going on, everybody? Want to give it a little bit of time before we start here. This is going to be part one of the coverage for debate. I just want to make sure that people can hear me before we get started. Can everybody hear me just fine? Let me know. Let me know. Somebody let me know something. I just want to make sure before we get started that we're all good to go. This session is going to be about 30 minutes. And then I have my show. I have Goodman coming on this evening. So I'm going to live stream that as well. So I really hope you all tune in for that. But we're going to get started here in 1 minute. One more minute. Hope everybody's doing well, by the way. We are almost done with the week, people. We're almost done. Almost. Some people would say it's not close enough, though. Right? Let me see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, this is your first time coming to the channel. This is actually my first time doing a live stream analysis. Oftentimes when I do analysis, I don't actually pull up the videos. But for this particular situation, because one, I do love debates. I still consider myself a debater. I've done debate all throughout high school and even in college. Also, I just really, have been waiting for an opportunity for Bernie to have a substantive debate on taxes in general. Just because, obviously, as you know, most of the debates were kind of like they're so general that anyone can lob grenades, which is actually what you're going to hear Ted Cruz try to do during this debate. And like once they do that, it muddies the waters, and then they start saying things like, well, you remember whenever the GOP was talking about Bernie Sanders charging 90% for taxes across the board, which is stupid. Like, he never said that. They took something literally that FDR said and tried to, or did, excuse me, and tried to attach it to Bernie Sanders. So we're gonna go ahead and get started here. Let's hear what they got to say.
And the middle class, but President Trump's critics say the plan is a huge boost to the rich and might even raise taxes for some in the middle class.
Meanwhile, President Trump's Treasury Secretary is saying that the stock market, now at a record high, will drop if Congress does not cut taxes. Senator Cruz supports the president's effort to lower taxes. Senator Sanders opposes it.
Gentlemen, welcome. A reminder, you will get 90 seconds to answer questions from us and our audience, 45 seconds for responses and rebuttals. Senators, let's start with your opening arguments. You each have 1 minute. Senator Cruz, we'll start with you.
Dana, thank you. I want to thank CNN and Jake and Dana both for hosting this, everyone for coming out. And Bernie, thank you for joining us for a substantive debate on tax policy. Several months ago, you and I did Obamacare. Now we're back with taxes. And I got to say, this debate is.
So let me just go ahead and say something. Ted Cruz tried to slide past that. You see how he did that really quick. He said, several months ago we had a debate on Obamacare, and now we're here talking about taxes. I'm not sure if you all know, but the two main proposals, outside of just, first of all, Ted Cruz is the one convincing the nation that the GOP had a legitimate replacement for Obamacare. And although I'm not a fan of Obamacare, I knew at the time that it was not true. They did not have a plan. But in that plan, his two main proposals were opening up the borders as far as competition is concerned for insurance companies, and and that will allow you to get rid of federal subsidies without seeing a harsh impact on premium costs. That obviously was not the answer, because as we know, premiums are expected to go up 10, 15, 25, and depending on what state you live in, even more percent starting November the 1st. They've already actually started going up across the board. So he lost that debate miserably. And so we're going to see how he handles this debate, if he's going to, just once again say a bunch of use a bunch of fluffy rhetoric that sounds pretty, talk about the working class a lot, but not actually want to do anything for the working class. But, the right, the establishment right specifically, has always had this habit of invoking the working class people, using that moniker, so that they can bring people in, and then they hit them with some bullshit a lot of the times, and it's not, they're not actually acting on the values they supposedly claim to have.
Very simple. Bernie and the Democrats want every one of you watching today to pay more taxes. And Republicans want to lower the taxes for each and every person watching this debate.
That, by the way, that's a lie. That's actually just simply not true. As far as the Democrats are concerned, I'm not really sure, because they haven't proposed an opposite tax plan to the Republicans. But you'll find out as Bernie demolishes the legislation that it's not exactly what they tried. He tried to make it black and white. And by the way, the whole playing on the Democrat versus Republican thing, he's doing that on purpose. He's trying to, from the very beginning, it's rhetorical. It's a rhetorical strategy. From the very beginning, he's trying to make people draw their line in the sand and automatically side with what he intends on doing, or what the GOP intends on doing, trying to put Bernie, even though he is an independent, from a state that used to be conservative until he kind of took it over. He wants to automatically lob him with the Democrats, even though, mind you, the Democrats, especially the establishment Democrats, did not like Bernie's tax proposal. So that isn't the Democrats' tax plan. If any, what Ted Cruz is saying is false, but that isn't the Democrats' tax plan. It was Bernie's tax plan, and they did not like it. All right.
Now, tonight I'm going to make a prediction. Bernie's going to suggest in just a few seconds that this is not really about you. This is about, quote, taxing the rich. That's what the Democrats always say. But here's what you need to know. Every time Bernie says the rich, what he means is taxpayers. And so if you pay taxes, he's talking about you. Now, how do we know this? We know this because there's a difference between facts and rhetoric. Bernie's tax plan cost over...
Okay, so I'm going to let him keep talking, but I want you all to remember that statement from Ted Cruz for the rest of the debate. There's a difference between facts and rhetoric. Matter of fact, anytime you hear an establishment politician, especially one like Ted Cruz, or especially one like a Hillary Clinton, or one of the establishment politicians who know they're full of shit, I want you to think of that statement that Ted Cruz just said. There's a difference between facts and rhetoric, and then tell me the irony at the end of this discussion.
$13 trillion. That's what he's proposed raising in new taxes. And who pays for it? Well, the Democrats always talk about the millionaires and billionaires. But here's a simple fact. We could take every single person making $1 million a year or more and confiscate 100% of their income, everything they make, every penny. And it would raise about $1 trillion, about 8% of the cost of Bernie's tax plan. That means if you want tax revenue, you don't get it from the millionaires and billionaires. You get it from the middle class. You get it from the working men and women in this country. Tax cuts.
Okay, so did you all hear what he just said? He just said you don't get the money from taxes. You don't tax the rich. You get it from the working class and the middle class families of the country. He just said that. He literally said that. I'm not joking. I'm gonna rewind it really just a little bit to see if we can.
Are about jobs. Tax plan. That means if you want tax revenue, you don't get it from the millionaires and billionaires. You get it from the middle class.
This man just said, if you want tax revenue, you don't get it from the millionaires and the billionaires. You get it from the working class. I just want you all to know that. He slid that in there really fast, though. But that's just hilarious.
Get it from the working men and women in this country. Tax cuts are about jobs and more money in your pocket. More money for the single mom to buy books for her kids. For the truck driver to be able to afford sending his daughter to college.
This is the first example of rhetoric versus facts.
For the family who's struggling to make ends meet to be able to save up and go to Disney World. This debate is very, very simple. Bernie and the Democrats want to raise your taxes, and the Republicans want to cut them so that you have more in your pocket.
Okay, so let's be very clear about something. To pretend that the idea of taxation is simple and just strictly something that we can talk about along party lines is lazy as hell. That's super lazy because that's not true. Even the Democrats don't even agree on how they should be taxing their people. So even the Republicans don't necessarily agree with how they should tax their constituents. And that's the fact that they continue to try to pretend as if they want to lower taxes for the middle class and working class is categorically false, and it's a lie. Just look at how they tax small businesses, and somebody will actually allude to that in this debate. They've always done trickle down. Look at Kansas whenever they had to close school early because they thought trickle down economics would actually work.
Senator Cruz, thank you. Senator Sanders.
Let me make a prediction. In 2 minutes, Senator Cruz is going to tell you that if we give tax breaks to the billionaires, like George W. Bush did, like Ronald Reagan, then we're going to create zillions of jobs and you're all going to become very, very rich. That we have a trickle-down economic theory, tax breaks for the wealthiest people, the largest corporations, and whoa, everything is good. That is a totally fraudulent theory. Here is the reality of American society today. For 40 years, the middle class of this country, the great middle class, has been shrinking. And what we have seen is a massive transfer of wealth from working families to the top 0.1%. Trillions of dollars because of corporate greed and an unfair tax system. Now, the Trump Republican tax proposal that's before us today. This proposal is being pushed by Senator Cruz's campaign contributors, some of the wealthiest people in this country, by the Koch brothers who are worth $90 billion. Why are they pushing this agenda? Because 80% of the tax breaks in this proposal will go to the top 1%. In fact, 30% of the middle class will end up paying more in taxes. 40% of the tax benefits will go to the top 0.1%. This is massive tax breaks for the wealthy. And then the other thing they do in order to pay for their tax breaks, you know what they do? They cut Medicaid over a 10-year period by $1 trillion, throwing 15 million Americans off of the health insurance they have. They cut Medicare by $470 billion.
Now, I want you all to understand how important that is, because remember what Ted Cruz tries to say in the beginning of the video, which is that they're going to cut taxes and that's going to be it. They're cutting them across the board and people will have more revenue. What they don't say and what he doesn't talk about is the fact that they haven't fixed healthcare yet. That was one of their grandest proposals. That was one of the strengths of their platform, especially Trump. That was it. Now they're going to cut Medicaid, which is actually going to make Obamacare worse. They said they're going to cut Medicare and Social Security across the board, which means I guess if you're, if you're making $15,000-$20,000 a year, I guess that's cool if you don't have to pay that $50 or $70 out of your paycheck anymore, except for it's not cool when that then has to go towards your medical expenses, child services, which Bernie talks about a little bit later. Those type of expenses now will become your burden and your burden alone. And the little bit of a tax break that they claim to give actually isn't a tax break. It's just deceptive maneuvering of what we already have allotted to us.
So what this is, in fact, is a proposal which is right on the floor of the Senate right now. Senator Cruz and I going back tomorrow. We're going to continue the debate. It is a Robin Hood proposal in reverse. They're taking from the working families and the poor, and they're giving to the rich. It's a proposal that must be defeated.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Let's talk about some of the details now. Republicans are still working out a lot of the details of the tax plan, but the proposed framework would cut the corporate tax rate from 35% to 20% and reduce the number of individual tax brackets from 7 brackets to 3 brackets, creating 3 new rates of 12%, 25%, and 35%. I want to begin with the question of who this plan will benefit. We're going to bring in Kelsey Yarzab. She's a student at the George Washington University here in Washington. She has a question for Senator Cruz. Kelsey.
Senator Cruz, I come from a middle-class family, and I worked hard in high school to get into a competitive college. But even after academic scholarships, my parents and I are still struggling to afford my education, and that's without indirect costs. So it's hard then for families like mine to see the benefits of cutting corporate tax rates and reattempting trickle-down economics when that hasn't been a long-term solution for the middle class in the past. How would you justify cutting the corporate tax rate by 15%, but only barely making a dent in the tax rate for middle-class Americans?
Kelsey, thank you for your question, and congratulations on your studies. Look, I understand the frustration, and you know what? There are a lot of young people who feel frustrated. You've probably got student loans. I know when I was in college, I had about $100,000 in student loans, and wasn't sure how to pay for them because my parents had declared bankruptcy when I was in high school. So I understand that's hard. You asked why cut the corporate taxes for a young person. I'll give you the single best reason.
Americans.
Kelsey, thank you for your question, and congratulations on your studies. Look, I understand the frustration, and you know what? There are a lot of young people who feel frustrated. You've probably got student loans. I know when I was in college, I had about $100,000 in student loans, and wasn't sure how to pay for them because my parents had declared bankruptcy when I was in high school.
Okay, so understand something. This is okay. A little background on Ted Cruz. He actually was what I would call a professional debater. If I recall, he was at Harvard University competing in what is still today known as APTA, and back then APTA was actually much more conservative. Now it is not so much. It is much more liberal, and APTA stands for American Parliamentary Debate Association. What he's attempting to do is create this relatability that doesn't exist. Okay, Cruz's parents were not bad off. I'm gonna put it like that. His dad was a Cuban American. He graduated from Harvard. He knew exactly how he was going to pay for his education because he was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars very soon after he graduated. So he's pretending to understand the plight of the middle class in a very deceptive and deceitful way. And I don't like it. I have to call it out. I can't stand it because for those who've actually been through that struggle, he's trying to like it doesn't delegitimize their struggles, but it delegitimizes the conversation. It's very disingenuous.
I understand that's hard. You asked why cut the corporate taxes for a young person. I'll give you the single best reason. Because when you graduate, you want a job. Do you know the United States?
Okay. Okay, so if I hope I have people on here that may work in the corporate world. He said, if you cut corporate tax rates for corporations, then they're going to hire people with that money. They're going to pay them essentially saying they're going to pay them. So if you graduate from college, you know that you're going to be entitled to more. That's not true, right? I think we can say that pretty clearly. We have a lot of history to prove that corporations must be incentivized to pay their workers. Right now, they are not. They also must be incentivized to hire new workers and pay them adequately. At the moment, most of them are not. We can just look at Walmart as the most obvious example. They're teaching their workers at this very moment. Once they get hired, you learn how to get on food stamps, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sure she's not going to school to work at Walmart as a full-time employee. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm being realistic. That's not what she's going to school for. She's probably going to pursue a profession. Cutting corporate tax rates is not the way to get them to hire more people, because they already have a lot of loopholes, as Bernie Sanders will talk about a little bit later. Their effective tax rate is 15%, which is really middle of the pack as far as corporate tax rates are concerned, because they have so many loopholes. And yet we're still having this massive income gap, this massive real unemployment gap, not like the fake numbers that Obama put out, but we have a real employment problem still. So that's just categorically false. But like I said, what he's doing is an attempt to try to be relatable in a situation that he clearly does not understand, because he did not try to go to the corporate world after graduating. He was, if I recall, a law school student.
Has the highest corporate tax rate of any developed country in the world. You look at countries all over Europe, you look at Ireland, you look at the United Kingdom, you look at France, they're cutting their tax rates, and what's happening is jobs are fleeing to those countries. Capital goes where it gets the right tax rate. And Bernie's solution is jack the taxes up even.
And that's also, he states, like I said, it gets the best tax rate. Sometimes there are better tax rates, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like that's part of competition, right? But capital doesn't go necessarily where it gets the best tax rates. They go overseas. Matter of fact, I'll let Bernie explain it.
Or if you jack the taxes up even more, we've already got the highest corporate tax rates in the developed world. You'll see even more companies leaving, even more jobs leaving. And the frustration young people feel is you're coming out of school and you don't have opportunity. You know, Bernie talked a minute ago about the gap between rich and poor. He's right. It's growing. But it's grown dramatically under Barack Obama. Do you know that right now the top 1% have a higher share of our national income than any year since 1928? If you look at...
Now, as most of you all know, I am not a huge fan of Barack Obama. I want to make that clear. I think he did some things okay, did a lot of things really bad, especially when it comes to foreign affairs. But you are not going to try to blame Barack Obama for the income inequality and wage gap when you've had control of the House and the Senate for how long? How long have you really, think about that, ladies and gentlemen. The Republicans pretty much were dominating, and they even had Tea Party Democrats aligned with them as well. So are we really going to blame Obama for the income and wage inequality gap? Because he wasn't the one who repealed Glass-Steagall. He isn't. He did protect Wall Street a little bit, which I didn't like. Like I said, I don't like it. But we try to pretend like it's not an Obama issue. Because the income inequality issue, I guarantee if you look at the blue states, once again, the income inequality is nowhere near as bad if you compare blue states to red states. And it's because of opportunity. It's because of, there's a lot of different factors that include. But the truth of the matter is, you can't blame blue for situations that were started almost like with Bush, with the Bush era. He kind of initiated the wage situation. He initiated it. And then Obama did not do a good job of stomping it out. But we're not going to be able to just blame Obama. It's disingenuous to blame Obama solely for that issue.
Article called The Greatest Wealth Transfer in History by Justin Gardner. New York Post editor called the period between 2008 and 2015 the Great Fleecing. Those are the Obama years, because what happened? What happened is $4.5 trillion in wealth was accumulated in Wall Street, and that was with high Obama taxes, high Obama regulation, all the cronyism and favoritism of Washington, and the people that got hurt, the gap between rich and poor, widened more under Obama than under any other president. What I want to see is young people coming out with opportunity.
I need to fact check that. I believe that there's a good opportunity. There's a good chance that that is very true. But it's only true because of things like what he is talking about doing right now. So you can't say it's like I don't know what you want to call it. It's a paradox, I guess. He's saying the gap between the rich and the poor got worse under Obama, which is true. But ladies and gentlemen, if I recall, CEOs, COOs, VPs, presidents, all that good stuff, all those people that work for these corporations, that head these corporations, aren't they the ones he's trying to give tax breaks to ensure that they stay rich? So how does that work? If I would love to know if someone could actually explain, if someone can explain to me how that makes sense. He's saying he's complaining about the wealth gap, but the wealth gap, poor people can't get but so poor. Rich people can get richer, but when you're poor, you can only be so poor. Zero is the lowest you can go. Well, actually, no. Debt but is the lowest you can go. But actual reality of it is zero is the lowest you can go when it comes to being poor. So the only other option is rich people are getting rich as hell, and he wants to give them more tax breaks, assuming that they're going to all of a sudden, now they're going to hire these poor people. So if they've been getting richer, right? If they've been getting richer for the last 8 to 16 years, and they didn't hire more people, why would all of a sudden, if you gave them more money, would they now decide, you know what? Hey, the GOP gave us that little tax break, that just a little bit more that we asked for. Now we're just going to be, welcoming these new high-paid employees with open arms. That is not how that's going to work at all. And it's disingenuous to pretend like he contradicts himself consistently during this debate. I just had to point that out because it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
The way you have opportunity is to have 2, 3, 4, 5 job offers. When you cut taxes on small businesses and job creators, the result is everyone benefits because you have more opportunity, better jobs, and higher wages.
Senator Sanders?
Well, for a start,
Sorry to interrupt, but the higher wages thing is a lie, right? We all know. I think we all know that, right? We know it's higher wages is a lie. There are literally states right now preventing the economy from determining the wage outcome, from determining the minimum wage. Kentucky, Missouri, another one. North Carolina, another one. There are states preventing the minimum wage from being determined from the economy. Just want you all to know that. Go ahead.
with you as a student struggling. And what you should know is that in order to give incredible tax breaks to the 1%, the Republican budget that we're debating right now would slash Pell Grant funding. Pell Grants are the major source of federal help for working class young people. It would slash that funding, if you could believe it. At a time when so many young people are struggling to figure out how they're going to go to college, these guys want to cut Pell Grants by $100 billion. They want to cut housing assistance all over this country. You're a young person. You're thinking of getting an apartment, getting a house. We have millions of people who are spending 40, 50% of their limited incomes on housing. They want to cut Section 8 housing and other housing programs by $37 billion. So what this entire proposal is about is to give tax breaks to people who don't need it. And you do that by making massive cuts in education, in healthcare, in housing, in the programs that working families desperately need.
Senator Cruz, you want to respond?
You know, I do. It's interesting. In his opening, Bernie invoked Robin Hood. And I got to say, I think Bernie fundamentally misunderstood that story. Robin Hood was robbing the tax collectors who were collecting too much taxes from the working men and women and taking it for the rich.
Once again, this is Ted Cruz is about to do some he's about to get like was fake outrage, the fake outrage that he likes to do. He was robbed. No, he was not taking the money from tax collectors who was giving it to the rich. He was taking it. I mean, yeah, he was protecting people from the tax collectors, but it was because he was taking it from the oligarchy who was pretending that these taxes were for the good of the kingdom and for the good of the people, and they weren't. They were clearly to fill and line the pockets of those who are already rich and in power. And so I think that it's probably more likely that Bernie hasn't misunderstood anything in regards to the Robin Hood story. I think that it's Ted Cruz who is clearly trying to make up his own version of what the hell he thinks Robin Hood was about. But whatever version that he's talking about, it's not the same version. It was clearly Robin Hood versus the oligarchy. And he's trying to... This is muddying the waters, by the way. This is another example of muddying the waters. Remember what he said. Ted Cruz himself in the beginning of the debate. There's a difference between facts and rhetoric. Remember that. Because like I said, the irony of that statement throughout this debate is going to be hilarious.
His analogy, it is the Democrats who are King John and the Sheriff of Nottingham. And Robin Hood is saying, tax collectors, stop hammering people who are struggling, who are laboring in the fields, who are working. Stop taking it to the castle to give out to your buddies. You notice Bernie's going to tell you all this free stuff he's going to give. And the Democrats love corporate welfare. They love to rail.
Okay. I don't get tired of me interrupting, I know. Bernie has never once proposed free stuff. So let's get that understood. Never, not one time. He's been very detailed in his explanations of his tax plan. It actually ends up saving literally everyone who makes even people who make around $250,000 a year would be protected by Bernie's tax plan. They wouldn't even feel anything. He's literally making stuff up. Once again, making an attempt to muddy the waters to paint him as a quote-unquote dirty little socialist instead of actually substantively debating. They use these absolutes and lob these grenades. He wants to take everything you own and give it to other people. And the Democrats love corporate welfare, but clearly the Republicans don't, right? Republicans don't like corporate welfare. That is the most idiotic. I'm not even people. I'm not even going to address that comment because it's not strictly a Democrat issue.
The insurance companies, what they won't tell you is that under Obamacare, the profits for the insurance companies doubled. When you have Washington giving out goodies, the big guys do great. It's the little people who hurt. It's the young people. It's the entrepreneurs. Look, when my dad came to America from Cuba, he couldn't speak English. He was washing dishes. He was making 50 cents an hour. Our economy has been the place where people can come and do that. And it doesn't.
Okay, so first of all, I know somebody caught it. Somebody somewhere caught this, right? You know how he just said to America from Cuba? Okay, so first of all, the reason that Ted Cruz's dad was able to come up, if you will, to make a better living for himself was because he moved to Canada, which is why Ted Cruz was born there. And believe it or not, for Cubans, life in America, especially when you look white, is very beneficial for you. It's easy, especially because his dad was an evangelist, and he was like a pastor. He looked white. He talked acceptably white. He could pass for a white man in a time where being Latino or being Mexican or being anything other than white was very difficult. Okay? And he took advantage of it, which, of course, I'm not saying it's like a bad thing that his dad was successful, but once again, this is just me trying to help you all understand how disingenuous Ted Cruz is. He tries to pretend that he's one of us, or he's one of the middle class or the working class. He's not, and I don't think he understands how to be that.
You notice, Bernie didn't disagree with what I said, that the gap between rich and poor has increased more under Obama than any president in history.
It's increased significantly over the last 40 years under Republican presidents, and it did increase under Obama, and it did increase under Bush. Under the Bush proposal, and remember what Senator Cruz is talking about, if we give tax breaks, we're going to create all these jobs, we're going to have all this growth, and we're going to have a surplus and so forth and so on. Under President Bush, he did it. He gave tax breaks, and you know what happened? He gave tax breaks to the rich. And you know what happened? We lost 500,000 private sector jobs, and the national debt almost doubled under Bush. Now, here is the most important point tonight. Really, it has nothing to do with taxes. It has something to do, everything to do, with campaign finance reform. And I want all of you to ask yourself a very simple question. Why do you think the Koch brothers and Ted Cruz's major donors, billionaires, are supporting these proposals? Do you think they're staying up nights worrying about working families? Do you think they're worried about kids who can't afford to go to college? Do you think they're worried about elderly people who can't keep their homes warm in the wintertime? They are not. You got one group of people, the Koch brothers, two people, worth over $95 billion. They are going to spend $300 million alone in this campaign cycle to do what? To pass legislation that protects the interest of the wealthy and the powerful, and to support candidates like Senator Cruz who will do just that. So when you think about politics, always ask the question, who is behind this agenda? There was an article, front page, Boston Globe the other day. It said, the Koch brothers want this tax reform. And you know what the article said? And Ted actually, I think, was at a meeting with the Koch brothers the other day. Was that right?
Indeed.
Yes.
Yo. Okay. So I'm gonna let Bernie finish this statement. I want to say this first because I have to get ready for my radio show, which I'm going to be doing live here. I suggest you all to stick around. We're going to have H.A. Goodman on. He's going to be talking about his book. But I just had to he says it with a straight face. And I want you all to look at this. Look at this man's, look at his face right now. Like, damn, I didn't think he was going to bring it up, but he brought it up. Look at it. He got a lip tucked in and everything. Man, he said with a straight face, Bernie just got done doing what he should have done, which is railing against the Koch brothers, right? Railing against them. They're worth $95 billion. They're about to spend $300 million on elections this year. Because if you don't know about the Koch brothers, they donate to both sides of the fence because they want the outcome to favor them. So after he has all this conversation about how bad the Koch brothers are, he looks at Ted Cruz and says, hey man, you just was meeting with them, weren't you? And he was like, yeah, I mean, damn, I didn't know we were playing like that, Burn Man, but I guess so. Shit, since you want to snitch on me like that, because that's what just happened. He just got snitched on a little bit. So at that point, can you take anything that Ted Cruz says seriously after that? Because if you can, I got some questions for you. If you can legitimately take anything that Ted Cruz says seriously after he looked Bernie Sanders and the rest of national TV in the face and said, hey, I was with the Koch brothers. What do y'all have to meet for? You're a politician. What do you need to meet with the Koch brothers for? You understand what I'm saying, people? They aren't in business together. Before, correct me if I'm wrong, before he became a politician, Ted Cruz was a corporate attorney. Koch brothers are not judges. They're not, legal leadership. They're not Supreme Court justices. the corporatists, what reason do you have to meet with the Koch brothers? I think we can all agree that there's probably no reason at all whatsoever. I mean, any reason that could be considered good. So with that being said, I'm going to continue this after my interview with H.A. Goodman. I urge you all to stick around. We're going to go into part 2 of the debate coverage in my analysis of the debate. And I hope you all enjoyed this so far. If you have anything specifically that you'd like me to talk about on the next debate video, make sure you can send me a message. Just leave me a comment below. Talk to you all soon. Like I said, I urge you all to stick around and check out the H.A. Goodman debate. It's going to be a good time. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if I don't get to talk to you, or if you don't get to stick around for the debate, find your balance. Peace.